Get on Team Shaq with WinBet. We're playing parlays, boosting odds, and laying the wildest prop bets. Don't miss another game. Download the WinBet sport betting app today.
Sign up today and win $200 in free bets when you place a $50 first-time wager on a straight bet or parlay. Offer subject to change. Terms and conditions at winbet.com. Must be 21 or older and present in a state where playthrough WinBet is available. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700.
Blue Wire.
First pick in the 1991 NBA Draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Larry Johnson from University.
I'm not supposed to be here, man. A lot of people from where I'm from, don't make it.
Charlotte, we're back.
All right, welcome in to what's going to be a pretty busy show, I think, today. Brian made a comment earlier today in the group text that, you kind of set your watches annually that Monday of draft week, everything starts to really come to the surface. And certainly that has been the case. We'll talk about a lot of that today. Let's get a few housekeeping notes taken care of here. BuzzBeat Plus, if you're not a part of it yet, I would definitely encourage you to check it out. I actually, the email went out this morning and it was just I was having my coffee at work and I was like, this is awesome. I know that I talk to these guys every day and I know some of this stuff, but some of the things that Richie plugged in there actually just helped me catch up with all the action. So there's really three things that you should be aware of. Ad-free episodes, which is a big deal for everybody if you're a podcast listener, early access to episodes. We record these things pretty frequently, but they don't always drop the next morning after we record them. So you get a little early access in that way. And then exclusive episodes. We're trying to put out more and more. So to get some of that content that might not be available to everyone else, I would encourage you to check it out. It's good stuff. Richie, our producer, is doing an awesome job. So yeah, check that out. BuzzBeat Plus. You can find out more on Twitter or just DM one of us and we'll get you the information. On that note, before we jump in, BG, what's going on with you? Let's start there.
Yep, I'm doing well, other than not having my mic on. No, I'm enjoying week of the draft. Always fun. At this point, just trying to sift through rumors that seem important and trying to filter out what is less important. And then also just trying to get as much kind of last second scouting in as possible with the draft, 48 hours away here. So, I feel prepared. I was telling someone the other day, if the draft had been on Sunday, I would have felt ready to roll. But when there's a little bit more time and, can't hurt to get a few more prospects and get a few more games in. So, no, I'm ready for it. Excited for what's going to happen this week. Yeah, especially with, ACC guys and certainly seeing what the Hornets are going to end up doing. But I'm doing well and ready to do some last minute stuff with you guys. And then obviously the live pod later this week when the draft actually takes place.
Well, I'm glad to hear somebody's prepared and ready for this. I don't think Lee and I can can say the same thing. I'm definitely cramming, but excited to talk. Lee, what's going on?
Yeah, I am. I'm generally feeling pretty good. Where my cramming is coming into place over the last week here is some of these lesser known international guys, not the mainstream like Jovic or Jiang, some of the back end international guys that I'm finally getting familiar with and actually kind of like a few of them. But we'll save that for the end of the episode. I am good. One of my favorite nights of the year, Thursday night, NBA draft. I'll go ahead and kind of pre-tease the fact that we'll be doing a live draft show in some capacity on Thursday night too. So ready to rock.
Yeah, good plug there. I'm excited for that as always. What year is this in a row that we've done this? It's 5 or 6?
It's since 2017. So this will be 6 in a row now.
That's pretty wild to think.
So yeah, we were there the night. We were the three of us, Richie, Spencer, and I were together the night Malik Monk fell. And there was much rejoicing in the very small BuzzBeat kingdom at that point in time. It didn't work out the best, but we were rather happy to see Malik fall that night to the Hornets. This will be 17. We were there for 2018 with Miles Bridges, 2019 with PJ Washington, obviously 2020 with LaMelo, last year with Bouknight and Thor and Kai Jones. And then, we'll see who it'll be this season. But 6 in a row here.
Yeah, that's wild. If you're joining us live tonight and you can see BG and you can see Lee there and you can't see me, there's not a ghost in the background and my video is just not cooperating. So I'll be audio only here. All right, well, good stuff. Yeah, we're excited for the week as always. I guess let's jump right in here because we've got a lot to talk about, and I think it has to start with the head coaching discussion or lack thereof. Today, Woj tweets that Mike D'Antoni was meeting with president of the team, Michael Jordan, and we can talk about the fallout from the Atkinson stuff if y'all want to, but everything's moving so quickly at this point. Let's probably just focus on D'Antoni if we can.
They are kind of doubling back on what was a reported finalist originally, prior obviously to Atkinson accepting and then walking away. It's painful. Like I just kind of have a bad taste in my mouth from the whole process, BG. Like I was never the biggest D'Antoni proponent. My preferred candidates were Atkinson, and I really came around on Darvin Ham too. Obviously he went to LA. It's not look, this guy has successful track record. He unlocks creative offensive players. We have that in LaMelo Ball. Like it's not a disaster. Don't get me wrong. It's just the way this is all played out. And then going back to what seemed like a second or third choice is just a little painful.
Yeah. I mean, it's as the last couple of days, it's been debated back and forth, how bad of a look is it? Who's it a worse look for? There was some additional reporting from Jake Fisher this morning. And I'm quoting from his article. Before Atkinson put pen to paper on his contract, he and the Hornets were unable to come to financial agreements for his new assistants. Sources said Charlotte is known to be among the league's bottom 5 teams in coaching staff salary. Again, that's directly from Jake Fisher's piece. So it does seem like a bit of a sticking point was assembling a staff here for Kenny Atkinson and maybe how much that would cost. If that's really what it came down to, and I'm guessing there's a variety of factors that were at play, but that's a pretty big own goal, you know what I mean, in terms of Charlotte's part. If you're not willing to,
this is the guy you actually believe in, and you just can't come to terms with nickels and dimes on the assistants.
Because this is a $1 billion enterprise that's run by a billionaire, and it's like, so in the scheme of things, what would be a couple million or a couple $100,000, like whatever the difference is, it's a drop. It's just a line item. You know what I mean? Literally a couple line items for this franchise. And again, I'm sure a lot of stuff is at play here. And Atkinson seemingly made this decision to stick in with Golden State for both personal and professional reasons. So again, I don't think it's just, I don't know if this is the straw that broke the camel's back or if it was just one of the more sort of notable reasons why this didn't happen. Whatever it is, it's a tough look. Obviously, I'm not surprised to see Charlotte going back to Terry Stotts and to Mike D'Antoni, who are 2 of the other finalists. That makes sense for them to start the process there. It's tough because the draft.
You have a big preference between those two, Brian?
Between those two, I mean, I think I would say D'Antoni. I have quite a bit of respect for Terry Stotts. Both of what he did at Portland, building that into a consistent winner post LaMarcus Aldridge, especially, and around Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, and that was a team that I don't think was great defensively, but had some years where they were sort of better than the sum of their parts defensively, and I think Stotts gets some credit for that. That maybe would look a little appealing, just with kind of what Charlotte is trying to do and trying to piece together the defense, but the thought of bringing in someone like D'Antoni to soup up the offense around LaMelo and give the guy that has helped, develop Steve Nash, James Harden, to now let LaMelo at age, 20 going on 21 get to be that guy with other people like PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, James Bouknight, guys that would seemingly fit into that picture. It's interesting. I thought one of the reasons why I thought the Atkinson hire was a little interesting was the possibility that maybe they were going to look at this as like almost like an intermediate rebuild, like they were going to like hit the pause button a little bit and try to focus on the draft and player development. I didn't think that was going to happen, but I thought, hey, maybe that was an interesting sort of like possible pathway for them to go forward. Obviously, if you bring in someone like D'Antoni, like that's not happening. You're just going like full tilt. Like we're trying to win as many games as possible. This guy is, he's a 70 whatever year old coach, and like, and the ownership wants to win now, so this is what we're doing. So I can understand some of the concerns, and I would be interested to know, like, what would the plan be defensively? Who's coordinating that? I think those would be some very important topics to be addressed, but it would make the team interesting. And I would be fascinated to know not just with the philosophy, but with some of the genuine X and O's that Mike D'Antoni can coach up and run, what that would look like with some of Charlotte's personnel. So I'm intrigued at the least. But obviously this is a tough situation, and for the draft to be this close, and for the front office to now all of a sudden, you would want everyone rowing in the same direction right now. It's the week of the draft. Let's just figure out what we're doing as far as trades, draft pick, making sure we're all on the same page. And now it's like, I guess you could kind of do that, but then you've got to put the coaching search on the back burner, or you've got to now restart the coaching search. And you're starting that back over with candidates that you just said, you were option B for us, And so it's like, it's just a weird place to be in. But yes, as far as D'Antoni goes, I don't know if he's the answer, but I would definitely have some optimism specific to the D'Antoni-LaMelo relationship and development pathway, and what that could also mean for some of the other young guys that are in the mix here in Charlotte.
I was just going to hit on one point that BG alluded to, which was that it would be really interesting to know, and it's going to be interesting to see who, let's say the D'Antoni thing happens, right? Like his assistant coaching staff, I think, matters more than some other coaches, because he's kind of got to have that right-hand defensive coordinator, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. And, that's a huge decision, and I think would be like really impactful and interesting to talk about when it happens.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, it was Jeff Bzdelic in Houston, but
right.
I don't think Wake Forest fans are allowing Jeff Bzdelic back in the state.
That was the weirdest thing to me, BG. It was like one of the worst Wake teams, and that's saying something in the last few decades. And it's like, oh yeah, Bzdelic's going to be the defensive coordinator in Houston. Like, wait, what? It was just the worst defense in the ACC last year. What do you mean?
It's just a different. It's very obvious that like the skill sets between being like a film junkie assistant coach in the NBA. Right. And like a guy that like is the face of the program, and it's just like it requires a different set of skills,
Sure, no question. My like knee jerk D'Antoni is just, I'm not like super fired up about a guy coming in that's 70 years old, the young group like this. Although I think there's plenty for him to tap into offensively with LaMelo. I think that's probably the most obvious thing. And then surely if you bring Bridges back, I mean, like in a lot of ways, this is a good fit for certain aspects of the game, but the defensive piece, and combined with the fact that if I read the report earlier today, right, they want to keep some of the guys on the staffs that were on Borrego's staff still here. It's like, well, a lot of it doesn't make sense. So I'm just assuming there's a lot I don't understand, but every leaf that falls is a rotten one now off this tree.
As we transition to this next topic, which is the Miles Bridges report, and Spencer, like you saying that is like getting me hot under the collar, because I think I've tricked myself into thinking this is all of a sudden now a really well ran organization because Mitch Kupchak has drafted well. And I've let that like plant a seed in my brain that we're all of a sudden some like super efficient, well ran organization. And I think this week has been a reminder, like a sobering reminder, that this is still, and it goes like to the bottom 5 paid-in coaches, the assistant coaching rumors, hesitancy, signing Miles Bridges to like all of these things are just like rearing their ugly head. And it's like, just because you've had a couple nice second-round draft picks, like doesn't necessarily mean you're the San Antonio freaking Spurs. Like it's frustrating.
Yeah, I think they definitely like there have been times the last couple of years where like they had chosen to pursue or not pursue certain trades, ones that I think they could have found some excess value along the margins. And it was sort of, for a team that was theoretically rebuilding, that was sort of frustrating because you're leaving value. You're leaving, possible extra picks. You're leaving cap space or whatever on the table. I could kind of look past it to an extent because it felt like there was still some long-term vision. Yeah. And it felt like they were still drafting well. And so I was like, okay, as long as you're being like relatively conservative with like managing picks and you're drafting pretty well and LaMelo's the tent pole, it's like I'll live with some of like the missed opportunities to be like, make quote unquote savvy trades. I think that's something Mitch Kupchak actually said at some point the last couple of years. And it's like, I can almost live with that. But then it's like, when you have stuff like this, where just like you extend Borrego and then 9 months later you punt him out the door, and then the plan to replace him falls through. And it just all of a sudden you're like, everything. And then, stuff with Miles, like we can get into that now. It's just a little, I don't know. It doesn't feel like a very like tight ship that's being run right now. Yeah. And that can be rectified this week, to be clear. Like that can change. Like that can change by the end of Thursday night, or it can tilt further worse in the other direction here.
Yeah, BG, and real quickly, just before we move on, we're going to talk about Miles, but you nailed it. Like, we were tricked in to believing there was a long-term plan here, but you look at the dominoes that fall, and it's very clear there's not a long-term plan here. And that really started back to signing Gordon Hayward to that big contract. I mean, that's where I would really start, because it was right at the beginning of what seemed like a young team that you needed to be patient with. And just like everything that's happened since then, I mean, we don't have to walk through it all, but it's very clear that Michael Jordan just lives in the short-term reality. Every decision he makes is a short-term decision. Whatever. I mean, follow me on Twitter. You know how I feel about this and him as an owner, but it's really infuriating, and it makes you feel like the Hornets just need a lot of luck to really make this work, which is not impossible, but it's hard.
Shopify is the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. And I love it because Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources that were once reserved for big businesses. So upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. I don't talk about it a ton, but I have a fishing company. 5 years ago this month, my best friend Aaron and I started a bass fishing weight company called Woo Tungsten, because woo is the sound you make when you catch a giant bass. So we sell tungsten weights for bass fishing, and Shopify has made it so incredibly easy. They have all the tools and the resources that we need. No matter how big or small your business is, they just make it so effortless. And like mine, Shopify powers over 1.7 million businesses from first sale to full scale. And you can reach customers online and across social networks with their ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. And you can gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting of conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond, which is something we use a ton. More than just a store, Shopify grows with you. Go to shopify.com/Blue Wire, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business today with Shopify. Go to shopify.com/Blue Wire right now. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Shopify.com/Blue Wire.
This Pride, everyone's coming through for the Trevor Project on YouTube Shorts. Join us! Create a short showing how you're stepping up for Pride using the hashtag YouTube Pride Challenge. Come through for Pride on YouTube Shorts. Visit youtube.com/Pride.
All right, Miles Bridges, extension. He is eligible for a $30 million max. Of course, Charlotte has his bird right, so they can give him 5 years. Everyone else can give him 4. Charlotte can give him 8% raises. Everyone else can give him 5% raises. Richie made that very clear in the great newsletter. If you're a BuzzBeat Plus fan, you would have that information already. So Charlotte has the financial leverage. There's no question here. But the rumors are, and who knows if they're true or not, I believe Shams is the one that broke this today, that they're a little queasy about giving him a max extension. I just quickly, and then BG, curious on your thoughts. I just like, if you're not going to extend Miles, well, number one, you had the chance to extend him already. Like, he was extension eligible, and you didn't have to like even think about $30 million. But the cheapskate extension offer you made him, in the past, we all said at the time, like, this is a gamble. If he takes another step forward, this is not going to fall in Mitch Kupchak and in MJ's lap well. And, it's just like, it's just another domino that I was talking about a minute ago. It's like, you can't even bet on your own guy as a small franchise that you drafted. Like, just pay him a little bit of a premium now, which that premium is like a discount to where we are now. It's just, oh gosh, it's infuriating. But in my opinion, if Charlotte does not pay whatever it takes, if it takes $30 million first year to bring Miles Bridges back, and they say, yeah, we're good, we're willing to lose him for nothing, because pulling off a sign and trade, I think, as a small market is pretty difficult. Like, that is going to be very depressing.
Yeah, I just don't think that can happen, like, personally. And yeah, I mean, going back to last offseason, frustrating for Miles to get just a low ball offer. I did think it presented kind of an interesting challenge for the upcoming season for both franchise and Miles. Like, how invested were they in Miles, and how, like, could he take what he had done over the back third of his third season in the NBA and stretch it out for a full season? The answer is yes. Like, he was awesome this year. Not a perfect player. I still think that he maxes out as, like, a number 3 guy on a really good team. You know what I mean? But someone that you could run offense through, can play both sides of the pick and roll. Defensively, I understand the concerns there. I think there were some improvements that have been made, not just last season, but really over the last couple of years. Not perfect, but he's like playable defensively, and offensively, like, he can do a lot of different stuff. He's a very creative and strong and powerful finisher, and a guy that fits next to LaMelo, and someone that they ran a ton of offense through just an inverted pick and roll this season with Bridges as like a downhill driver. Like, he's a very good scorer and a pretty efficient scorer, and he doesn't even have like an in-between game. Like, it really is like dunks, floaters, layup package stuff around the rim, and then, step back threes or catch and shoot threes or pick and pop threes. But I mean, I guess the concern would be, well, first off, like, the reporting from Sean's, like, I'm sure that like, he got that from that information from a legit source. I'd be curious to know, like, what the source was, who the source was.
The Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah, the Portland Trailblazers, or Clutch Sport, or like Rich Paul. I mean, that would make a lot of sense too. Like, is this Clutch trying to juice the market a little bit and using Shams as a megaphone to do that? I don't totally necessarily buy it. Like, it's one thing for Charlotte to potentially, like, say, like, they're going to be a little weary of maxing Miles. I think maybe even there's some validity. Like, I could almost even understand some of that. But, like, they have to retain this guy. I just don't know, like, the whole, like, when you're a small market team like Charlotte, when you draft and develop a guy like Bridges, that's the whole point. You pay those guys, you bring them back. And yeah, it would have been great if you had locked him in with some years and some cost certainty on an extension a year ago. But, like, that window closed, 12 months ago. So you got to do what it takes to bring him back. And so, yeah, I guess my thing is, I'm just not, like, I know there was a lot of, like, hand wringing and people upset on Twitter or whatever today about it. I'm just not, I won't be too worried about that until it's actually like, oh, Portland or Detroit have agreed to, they've extended a max offer and Bridges has agreed to it. Now Charlotte has to decide whether they want to max or not. But until then, like, I don't know. I feel pretty comfortable in Bridges being back in Charlotte.
Yeah, you guys laid it all out perfectly. I'll just share some closing thoughts. Like, I completely agree with you, BG. Like, I'm not worried about it, with the caveat that this has already been a really weird offseason and a really weird week. And, like, I guess I'm just a little on edge. I'm a little tense, boys. So, like, it makes no logical sense for all of the reasons that you guys just laid out. I have it would be an absolute disaster and travesty. And so I'm not really letting myself seriously consider it either, although the reporting is concerning and the context of this offseason so far kind of leads me to believe that nothing is impossible. But yeah, Miles Bridges will be paid and we'll be back in Charlotte next season. I'm gonna hold to that line.
I don't know if he just made the impulsive comment that he'd take less in Charlotte. He was like, oh, crap, what did I just say? Or he actually meant it. But that was a little surprising to hear him say, yeah, I love it here in Charlotte. And if I need to take a little less money, then okay, let's do it. Moving on. The gift that keeps on giving. Russell Westbrook, the flirting between him and MJ, it's real. It's real. We've heard this for over a year now. I don't really have any other thoughts other than what Brian was just kind of saying about, Shams and who's using him. I think this is the Lakers probably not really giving a shit about MJ and just saying we're going to throw this to the Wolves and try to stir up some, get some people to call us. I just don't think it's real. I just don't believe it. I can't believe that. I don't believe that MJ is going to pay this guy $47 million next season. I just don't. Even if that means getting off Hayward the season after, I don't believe it.
It would be fascinating to see, wouldn't it? It really would. I mean, being able if you go by the years not money axiom, there's some interest. I think. I think it certainly. We talked about this months ago, but just I would be here. The thing that interests me the most about this hypothetical of Hayward Russ swap is just what do the other part we know those to be the two principles in the deal, but what are the other what do the picks look like? What are the young players like that's the stuff that I think again, I get these are the two big salaries, these are the old all-stars or whatever, but I think the most interesting part of this hypothetical is actually how and what greases the wheels to actually get it done potentially.
Well, yeah, because Hayward helps the Lakers in theory if he can stay healthy. Westbrook doesn't we already know that he can't help the Lakers, and we're not sure he can help anyone in this league. He can probably help Moscow, but he's not helping any team in the NBA. I don't think right now. Yeah, Jessica Moscow. Yeah, not the actual nation of Russia. But, so I don't see how Charlotte wouldn't have the leverage here, which is why I think I read something earlier that was. What was it? Russ for Rozier, Hayward, and Oubre. One of the highest followed Lakers accounts. I'm like, what?
I mean, that just falls right in line with the PJ Washington for a bag of chips and cash consideration.
Yeah,
it's amazing how these Twitter personalities just take our talent with
they would love to just give up this 23-year-old stretch 4-5 that makes 38% of his threes, and we could probably get them to throw in a 2026 second round pick. I bet as well. I mean there also is just another level of I think the one of the people that continues to bring up this hypothetical is Kevin O'Connor at The Ringer, and it's if you create rumors with the Lakers and Russell Westbrook, it's gonna get clicks. People are gonna look at it. You know what I mean? That is gonna happen. I couldn't even believe. I guess I missed this, and I was listening to the Low Post with Jonathan Givony on there today. I had no clue that there were some people there was chatter that Kyrie would maybe take the mid-level to go play in one of these big market teams. Just no, that will never, that's just not happening. I'm sorry. I guess Kyrie's done more surprising things than that would potentially, but it's he's just not going to do that. So I don't know, but yes, the Hayward and Russ hypotheticals are. They're I guess they're fun off-season fodder, but that seemingly is all they are.
I think so too. Sorry, Spencer. I'll make this one quick. I do agree with Brian. If you are going to actually entertain this trade intellectually, number one, it makes the Hornets meaningfully worse next year. I don't think that is avoidable, even with Hayward's health. Russell Westbrook, although like I think maybe people even go like a little too far on Russ at times. Like he's not a completely useless player, but he is not the contributor and all-around player that Gordon Hayward is at this point in his career, even if Gordon only plays 50 games. So the Hornets are meaningfully worse. The years is an interesting concept because you do get off a big bag of money a lot quicker and you have more roster flexibility with the young core moving forward. But the interesting part of this is exactly what BG already hit on. And I would hope and pray that this would be the conversation. It's that the Lakers are getting the better end of this deal from a player contribution standpoint. So how do they entice the Charlotte Hornets to take Russell Westbrook for 1 year? And is that enticement value, whatever it is, picks, a young player, not that they have that many. I mean, it's like Austin Reeves, Taylor Horton Tucker. I don't know if you guys are big Mac McClung guys, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like they're not exactly like a treasure trove of young development prospects. So it seems to me that it would be hard if I was sitting in that seat to get me to do that. But it's not as like insane as some of the other stuff if the Lakers could somehow make that work. But again, the Hornets would be worse next season. And I don't if you're hiring Mike D'Antoni, like again, it just gets to this place of like illogical reasoning and steps that make zero sense.
I just can't buy it. And I think it's I just think it's people on certain sides trying to feed the media something to stir something up. So, all right. Well, moving on, we did just
real quickly, what I would say, and again, like we'll only seriously entertain this thing if and when it comes to it. But like if D'Antoni is the coach next season and if there actually is a Westbrook trade, I guess the fascinating point would be, would Charlotte actually like want to roster him next season or would they buy him out? I guess that's like something that we'd have to see. And like, I guess the one thing that Russ can still kind of do, and the last time that we saw him playing like big time, like basketball where he could still be a winning player was in Houston next to Harden and them playing 5 out, right? And just letting Russ be theoretically the one guy that could slash and be in the paint. There's, again, this is so far in the weeds, but LaMelo as the primary in lineups with PJ Washington as the 5 could theoretically open the floor for Russ as just pure slash against the rim. You can get rim pressure, touch the paint, touch the rim, that type of stuff. I mean, that's like the most optimistic view of it. You know what I mean? And I don't see that coming to fruition, but I just did want to put that out there real quickly.
All right. So listener question, and you mentioned one thing, if Russ, and this kind of cascades into the next question we get here, if Charlotte traded for him and then bought him out, well, that's an open roster spot. And Rich, who is a BuzzBee Plus subscriber, asked, with 3 rookies last year, how many picks should we really use this year? The Hornets have 3 picks in the draft, had 3 last year. And then Rich, thank you for your kind words. He says, I think you guys do an awesome job. Really enjoyed the special mock draft that you just did. Thanks for listening, Rich. That's awesome. We appreciate that. So I think like the two-way spots make this an easier problem to solve than it used to be, right? You had 15 roster spots and the G League was less of a thing. You couldn't really place guys somewhere and retain their rights. The two-way spots have solved a lot of those problems. I think the ultimate question becomes, you got a lot of non-guarantees here. We don't know what's happening with Oubre. Do you keep Cabalco on a two-way? It seems like the team wants to see it through with Scotty Lewis. I mean, I'm just kind of reading the tea leaves. I don't know anything beyond that. But I think the Hornets have enough flexibility to use all 3 of these picks and keep all 3 of these players. Certainly the 2 first-round picks, obviously. Second-round pick, we'll see. But, but then you get into the reporting of it seems unlikely that Charlotte, if they had it their way, they're not going, they're not selecting at 13 and 15. One of those picks is going to be on the move. So I think they have plans to keep themselves outside of that kind of dilemma. So I would say, like, I guess to answer the question, I think Charlotte will probably they'll draft 3 times on draft night. They'll probably have the draft rights to 2 of those 3 players when we wake up the next day. And I think, 13 or 15 is probably going to be on the move between us talking right now and draft night. Do you guys think things fall through, or you think that's probably the most likely scenario?
Yeah, I mean, when I initially thought about this a couple of weeks ago, I actually thought it was more tighter than it was. But as you just laid out, Spencer, like, you've got the flexibility of the two-way spots. Kabolka's almost 25 now. It kind of seems like maybe it's time to kind of move on from him potentially. Is Isaiah Thomas coming back? You already mentioned Cody Martin. You already mentioned Oubre, so and Montrez, he may not be back as well. So there is some roster flexibility. Like, we could take on 3 draft picks. Obviously, it does sound like one of the first round picks likely could be on the move, but it's definitely possible to roster 3 rookies. And if the draft falls a certain way, I would even be very down to roster 3 rookies if they're prospects that I'm favorable to. So yeah, we can take on 3 draft picks. I don't think that's a problem.
BG, what is let me ask you this. What's your favorite deal involving the 13th pick, the 15th pick packaged with Rozier? Have you done that have you workshopped that? Because I thought about a lot of different scenarios.
I'd have to go back and check some of my notes, because I do think we looked at some point, we must have looked at Gobert hypotheticals, although it does seem like Charlotte's completely fallen out of that race now. I know we've kicked the can on Miles Turner a bunch. I mean, there's even part of me that would almost be interested in. I mean, you guys know how I feel about PJ. I think very highly of him as a player, but it's also you could in theory do PJ plus Mason Plumlee for Miles Turner and then use all of those picks. You know what I mean? It's again, I don't know off the top of my head the best way to sort of package that stuff to upgrade the roster. I've been so deep in just sort of draft scouting, draft prep, that aspect of it. Every year I sort of root for the Hornets to use all their picks and to sort of especially under the current front office that's drafted pretty well, trust their scouting department and go get some good players. I've also always been in the camp too that just Charlotte is a team that needs to add as many good young players as they possibly can. You just need as many opportunities to draft someone that could be a difference maker, because right now, as we've seen based off the last 2 seasons, barring Gordon Hayward being able to play a full year, they're short, right? They're short. They don't have enough defensively. They need help in terms of offensive creation, even with the developments that Miles Bridges has made. So they need players, and the draft is the best way to go about getting those guys, in my opinion. So I'm always of the notion that they should use these picks. They should go draft these guys and try to go add some good players to the pipeline here. So I do think there's, depending on what they want to do as far as trades or bringing guys back, a la Cody Martin, there absolutely could be room for all 3 of these guys on the roster. It's also important to note, they could at some point in the next 3 years be out a first round pick, right? The pick that they sent to New York to get back in the first round, draft Kai Jones last year, has now been routed to Atlanta via the Cam Reddish trade. They're down a first round pick. You know what I mean? At some point, I know,
which is why they really have to capitalize on these 2.
Yeah, I know.
This year.
I mean, they lucked up to get the 15th pick. New Orleans got hot the last 2 months of the season, got into won the play-in, and then got into the playoffs. That via the Devontae Graham sign and trade is how they got this pick. So yeah, it's found money, but it's kind of necessary because again, they're out 1 pick already, and they may need to use some of these picks to, I don't know, upgrade the roster or move some salary around. But my preference would be that you use these picks and go draft and add. LaMelo is 20 years old. He doesn't turn 21 until August.
Yeah.
So I just. Well, sorry. NC State University is calling me right now. I will not be donating to my alma mater tonight.
Come on.
Unless that's Terquavion Smith calling me or Darion Sebron calling me. I have no interest. So apologies for that there. But yeah, that would be my thought, that not only can there be room on this roster for these 3 picks, depending on the moves they make. In fact, I think you should look at this as a big time opportunity got 3 picks inside the top 45, 2 inside the top 15, and go make them count, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, let's I want to throw it to you now, Lee, because we can package all this into the same kind of conversation. So there was also a report, I believe this was O'Connor, forgive me if I'm wrong, but that Shaedon Sharpe worked out. It might actually, I'm not sure. Maybe it was Draft Express, but Shaedon Sharpe worked out for Charlotte, which seems surprising considering he's like a pretty much unanimously inside the top 7 or 8, right, in this draft, and Charlotte's not stiffing that. So is there a packaging of 13 and 15? Is there some flirting going on there? Could Charlotte package these picks and maybe it would take something else? I'm not sure. I've seen some what you can find on Sharpe on the internet. I don't know, Lee. What do you think? Like, I actually like a lot. Like his shot creation is second to none, I would say, in this draft in terms of like a wing guard. But boy, there's a lot of question marks here that would make me pretty queasy for Charlotte to hand up a lot of draft capital and possibly even another player to jump up and draft him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the logical assumption is if Charlotte is courting Sharpe, that they have to be considering moving up in some sort of fashion. Although I think that is like base case, most logical reasoning. Although like you start doing some exercises with this board and like somebody is going to be available, like, at 13, depending on how this goes. Like if both the centers go prior to Charlotte, like that means one of the wings is falling, like a Johnny Davis, a Sohan, like a Sharpe, like one of these guys. Unless
another possibility to fall to 13,
which I would be thrilled with, and we'll probably get into some of that later. But like, so I just wanted to make that point too. That like, yes, I do. I totally think that if they are enamored with Sharpe and that's their guy, they probably are going to have to move up to get him. But I also just want to make the point that when you really start digging into like, how is this going to fall? Like there's going to be some really interesting options on the table. And so I'll say this, and I know BG has some opinions on Sharpe as well. I don't know what they are, so it would be maybe fun if we disagreed on this a little bit potentially. But you're right, Spencer. Like it's hard to find stuff on him. If you have Synergy, you can get his EYBL stuff from last summer. He played with UPlay EYBL out of Canada. And I've gone through the EYBL stuff, and obviously it's a year ago and it's not against college level SEC competition. He set out at Kentucky. I'm not a fan. He's a big guard that is very talented, really fits the eye test. Like you watch this dude, if you clipped certain clips of Sharpe, you would absolutely be like, that guy looks like a number 1 pick. Like no doubt about it. I mean, some of the isolation, like combo move, step back stuff is ridiculous. He's very, very springy, very athletic, very strong. He actually, one thing I do like about him, he really does a good job of like avoiding charges and like finishing around like defenders that are trying to draw a charge on him or even contest at the rim. He can hang long enough to show you the ball, take it away, and finish on the other side. Like he's got some great stuff. The problem with Sharpe, particularly in Charlotte, is that like he is a ball stopper, like full stop. He is a catch the ball, eye this defender down. And to be fair, the counterpoint could be he was in the EYBL. He's the best player by far on his team. This is how he played. He could adapt to another system. Maybe. I didn't see it. Like, didn't see much of interest in playing any defense, cutting off the ball, relocating for open shots. Like, he's a catch and do work guy. And, like, his size and his shot making, like, maybe that works in the NBA. There's a lot of, they're different players, they're different physical profiles, but there's a lot of book night in him into where it's like pound the ball, try and finish athletically around the rim. Jump shot is kind of a question. I don't love the fit, although I understand why he is tantalizing.
Real quickly, BG, and then I'm going to give the floor to you because I'm sure you probably know him as well as any of us, but his vertical athleticism does not match up with his side-to-side athleticism. From the little bit of film that you can get out there, he's got some pretty heavy feet for a guy that allegedly has like a 48, 49, inch
He's
vertical
not a
leap.
burst. He's not a burst.
No, he's not.
He's
I totally
and herky jerky stuff.
No, I totally agree. Like there's some bust kind of stuff in there. It's great that you can get to your step back going right and left and get any jump shot you want. But like if you're shooting that jump shot at 34% and you're not getting to the rim, you won't be in the NBA.
It's also a problem if you're shooting that step back because you can't get around the guy that's guarding
exactly
you,
yep.
right?
And
not like a defender in the G League or a defender in the ACC or the Big Ten or whatever. We're talking EYBL defenders and high school defenders. He did measure with over a plus 7-inch wingspan, almost 6'11" and a half wingspan at the combine. So he does have that. Obviously, he is like an explosive vertical leaper. And some of like the alley-oop catches he has off of 2 feet they're pretty sick. I do think there are some like moments where he's able to sort of like change direction in the open floor a little bit, or maybe when he's got room out of a ball screen to get downhill and use behind the back dribble to change direction, split defenders. Can be a powerful finisher going through contact. Maybe a little reliant on that right hand, but has good lift, good hang time. And, Lee mentioned some of those like hanging reverse finishes he has where he's able to like contort going baseline. I kind of like him most when he's put in, and this would be different than sort of like the archetype that his time on the basketball would, like, he might want to be a guy that is going to be a 20 whatever % usage guy and run pick and roll, do all of this other stuff. I like him more in like a quick catch and finish situation. So attacking off the catch, driving against a defense that's already been tilted, post-ups. Like he is like pretty like, seal and get these quick, high-low entry passes, and he'll be able to, explode and finish, or getting points in the open court. He's a pretty like creative cutter and like a pretty good finisher, a guy that can get back door and find pockets of space and be explosive finishing around the rim. But like, he's not that bursty. First step isn't that good. And so he just doesn't create like obvious separation in one-on-one situations. Then you combine those issues with the burst, with the handle, and it leads to some like pretty ugly turnovers and some possessions where you like really will question, I don't know, like the individual offensive process. I think there are issues with his motor too, specific to his defense, but just like, this is the guy that was initially in, would have been in the draft class a year from now until he reclassified. And there's a guy that's going to be in the 2023 draft class named Scoot Henderson that I know, Lee, you've watched just doing G League film this year. Totally different story. Scoot Henderson is one of those guys you watch and just reeks of a star with the basketball. Turns the corner every time, gets into the paint every time, easy advantage creation, and then just like the explosive live dribble finishing off that burst. It's just incredible. I cannot wait to talk more about Scoot Henderson next season with you guys. I don't feel that way about Shaedon Sharpe. I kind of see the vision, but as a guy that you put next to LaMelo as like a power finisher to give you some shot creation and some athleticism, finishing, I see that vision. I don't know. I think that's like wish casting Sharpe a little bit into that sort of like second guard gunner role. I think that's maybe is better suited to be like a peg or two further down, sort of like the offensive pecking order. But, I'm intrigued for sure, but this would not be, in general, I don't like the thought of packaging picks to move up, unless you're moving up to 4 to get Jaden Ivey, in which case, yes, do that. But short of that, no, just in general, I don't think it's like a very good practice in terms of, managing your picks and in your roster and stuff. And Sharpe does not seem like the kind of guy that I would want to go all in for. I see why he's a top 8 prospect, top 7 pick or whatever in this draft, but I would be concerned, to say the least, with him as a prospect. He's going to take time. Like, no matter what, this is a long-term development piece. And so, like, for a team that's also trying to win now, it makes even less sense for Charlotte, I think.
Let's end with this. We'll do 2 things at once. So give our preference. We're going to assume Charlotte hangs on to 13 and 15. So everyone give their preference for those 2 picks. And then maybe this player is in these 2 picks you're going to give, or maybe he's not, but a player that's just generally caught your eye, that's going to be in somewhat Charlotte's range. Doesn't necessarily have to be for them. I'll start us off real quick. So player that's caught my eye. The stats aren't great. I mean, down in New Zealand, the NBL league, Usman Jang, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I mean, it's hard to watch him and not be very, very intrigued. If you have not looked at his statistical profile yet, here's what I would ask you to do. Don't look at it. Just go watch his film and then look at his shooting numbers and be like, wait a minute. What's not adding up here?
Also, make sure to watch from like the last month of the season too, if you want to see like the good stuff too.
The good stuff.
I mean? Yeah.
Super intrigued, and he's kind of exactly what Charlotte needs. Not exactly what they need is a center, obviously, but like a big wing who can do some stuff defensively at different positions. In some weird ways, he's like not exactly the same player, but I couldn't watch him and not help but think like a younger Nick Batum, like before Nick Batum broke all of our hearts. Like there's some similarities in there somewhere, not the exact same player at all. And I think Jake's a pretty good athlete, but he's who intrigues me the most, I think, in this draft. Like he's barely 19 years old, played professional basketball last year, although not in a great league. He's 6'9". He really looks like, to me, he can shoot the basketball. Like the numbers don't look great, but my goodness, that stroke looks like it's going to translate, and he's going to be able to get that shot over anybody, even in the NBA. My picks at 13 and 15, realistically speaking, like I think if Mark Williams is there at 13, because I think the point you brought up, Lee, in the last episode that I was on, you got to worry about somebody trading up to 14 potentially and grabbing him in that Cleveland spot, because I don't think they're taking a center. But I think you got to draft him at 13. He's the most likely center to be there then. I don't think Jalen Duran's going to be there. And then really, then I'm just praying that Jeremy Sohan makes it to 15. He won't make it to 15, so that would be a tough spot for Charlotte to be in. If Sohan was available, the centers we expect to be off the board are off the board, and Williams is there. Like, now that I'm thinking about it, as I say that, I might take Sohan at 13 and just pray that Williams is there at 15, just because I love Sohan so much. I just think Sohan could have played in the NBA Finals this year. He's that kind of guy. Like, he's just going to come in and he's going to give you energy. He's going to grab rebounds. He's going to make plays on defense. Like, can he shoot? Can he do anything offensively? You're just that's just added. That's just like cherry on top. But he's such an active basketball player. He's going to impact the game immediately in the NBA. And I think Charlotte's roster really needs a guy like that, because they don't really have it.
Sohan's feel for the game and his defense, there are some Iguodala vibes that it gives me. I will say we did, Lee and I, like a week or two ago, did a podcast where on a couple of different prospects, and we covered Jang pretty in-depthly. And I think both of us like him a good bit as a prospect. So I like Jang, and it does seem like him sliding into the top 10 of the draft is what could push someone like Jeremy Sohan to 13, or could push AJ Griffin or Johnny Davis to 13, or Jalen Duran to 13, or something like that. We'll see how things play out Thursday night, but that does seem to be one of the things that's shaking up the order just a little bit more here at the end. I do think Jang's going to have to get a little bit stronger, a little more explosive athletically. But again, some of the stuff he does as a pick and roll creator and a driver is it's entertaining to say the least, and perhaps promising to if you really want to bet and dream on it. My dream scenario would be Sohan falling to 13. For me, he is just exactly what Charlotte needs. Perimeter defense, guy that can guard a bunch of different player types along the perimeter. Can give Charlotte another guy that can be a part of the offensive flow in the half court, swing, set screens, can run inverted pick and roll, guard a bunch of different position types. Just a high field player that would be awesome to put around LaMelo and Miles Bridges. So and then I would say someone like Mark Williams at 15. I would just maybe take what Spencer said and just flip it and say Williams at 15 to be hopefully the sort of true traditional center that you can, run, screen, roll with, let him dive to the hoop, and perhaps try to get into some more conservative and conventional pick and roll coverages, depending on how you fill out the roster with perimeter personnel. But maybe you could invite some more drop coverage into the mix with someone like Williams. I do think it's worth keeping an eye on some of the names that I just mentioned, like can AJ Griffin fall to 13, like a special shooting prospect, someone that maybe does have a glimmer of superstar potential. Like if physically he's there and he can trust his body, is a guy that like has step back three potential, just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful shot and shot versatility from a bunch of different levels of the court. Someone like Johnny Davis, if he could fall to 13, I don't think these are all like maybes and ifs, but it is a possibility that one of them will be there. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on all of those guys. So yeah, Lee, I'll throw it over to you. What do you think about picks 13 and 15? And maybe is there anyone else that's caught your eye here late in the draft process?
Yeah. So, all right, this is kind of how I'm thinking about it. I have been going back and forth on Duren and Williams all draft process. I have finally settled on, I think I'm literally going to have Williams one slot ahead of Duren. Like it's a razor thin margin for me. They both bring different things. We've already covered all that. I don't need to get in the weeds. I'm just making the point that I would be thrilled with either one of them at 13. Maybe both are gone. I don't think there's any chance both of them are available and Charlotte actually has to make that decision. I favor Williams by the slimmest of margins. I also am I think I'm pretty alone on this island at this point, although I think Spencer likes him too. Like if they were both gone, I wouldn't be rioting in the streets if we took Walker Kessler. I still really like Kessler a lot. So he is definitely a tier down in terms of bigs. So Williams and Duren, thrilled with either one. Kessler would be okay with, wouldn't necessarily be writing home about it, but be cool with it. And then if we keep 15 or all the bigs are gone, my dream is either it's four guys. Any of these guys fall. Blake Wesley, Jeremy Sohan, AJ Griffin, or Johnny Davis run to the podium. Any of those four, happy as a clam. And then kind of one tick down from those four guys, kind of in the same vein as Williams, Duren, then way down Kessler. Those four guys I just named, then a tier down, Ty Washington, Ochai Agbaji, pretty cool with either one of those guys as well. And then I will end with a guy that has really caught my eye that I've been tweeting about a lot the past week. If you follow me, you're probably sick of me tweeting about him, is Stanley Amude from Arkansas.
He's a brick of a perimeter defender. Just an absolute brick.
Freaking guy, defender. Man. He is 23 years old. He's a fifth-year college player. He was a big-time scorer at, I believe, South Dakota before transferring to Arkansas for his fifth year. He's a 37% career three-point shooter on big volume. As Brian just said, he's 6'6", 210, absolute brick house stonewall defender. The last two games I've watched on him, he guarded Banchero and Tari Eason for the majority of the game. And obviously those two Banchero more than Eason, obviously still got his buckets, but
Paolo was pretty good in that game.
he made it difficult on him though, man. He made it hell. And I barely see this guy even in second rounds. And it's just kind of, I know he's old, but how many of these kind of older prospects are we 3 months into the NBA season? He's the eighth man on a decent team. And you're how the heck did nobody draft this guy? Stanley Amude, I'm just getting it on the record. I think he's an NBA player.
Yeah. It's sort of similar. We talked about Gabe Brown last week, right, Lee? It's another one of those guys where you're just this is one of these wing defenders that can do his tools. He can do a bunch of stuff and shoot, probably going to have a shot at the next level. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I like Amude. He's one of those guys that didn't pop for me until I was doing Duke Arkansas prep leading into that game. And if you put on Arkansas film, you can't you're going to gravitate to him because he just looks he's got the PJ Tucker build out there, floating around. I do think one other name I do want to toss in because I know we're running up against it, but we've talked a lot about centers. I don't think we had mentioned Amude's teammate at any point during this process, which is, it is what it is, but maybe a bit of a miss on our part. But just Jalen Williams.
He's awesome too, man. He's a really good player.
Yeah, great player. Maybe he'll be there at 45 for Charlotte. I could see him going well before then too, but just excellent team defender. Even if he can't shoot it, I think there's a chance he might be able to shoot it at the next level. His ability to screen, his feel for the game, the team defense, his ability to slide and guard in space, the scheme versatility he might be able to give you as a pick and roll defender, pretty intriguing stuff, and just seems like a guy that's going to be a rotation center in the NBA for a long time. Probably not what Charlotte's exactly looking for at the 5, which is probably why we didn't touch on him, because he's not like a run and jump guy. But what he does, I think, would be pretty interesting as far as just like how he projects to the next level. And I did want to, for like 2 weeks now, I've been wanting to get a Jalen Williams plug in. So now that we're talking Razorbacks, a team that I know we're going to be watching a lot next season. I'm very excited for the Nick Smith era and Anthony Black era down there. But we'll talk more about those guys 9 months from now. Anything else, boys, on this episode of BuzzBeat before we sign off until the draft here?
Can't wait for the draft, man.
I just got word that we're going to have a very, very special guest on Thursday. That you're going to have to tune in to see who this is, but you will not be disappointed. So let's just leave it at that.
It's going to be it's going to be future Hornets shooting guard Russell Westbrook. That's going to be he'll join us Thursday night.
Shooting guard? What are you talking about? He's going to be ball dominant point guard.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. LaMelo sliding into the 2 to make
former MVP.
That's true.
Yeah. Let's get it straight.
Yeah. Boy, the things age quickly in the NBA. That's for sure.
Hope you guys enjoyed that episode of BuzzBeat. Like Spencer alluded to, we will have a special guest that will be joining us live on YouTube for about 10 to 15 minutes. We'll keep you guys posted when we do go live. If the Hornets do draft and keep those picks at 13 and 15, you could probably expect us to go on a little bit before 13 and stay on a little bit after 15. So thanks again for tuning in to another BuzzBeat episode, and we will talk to you guys later.
What's up, y'all? I'm David.
And I'm Justice.
And the Don't Trip podcast is now a part of Blue Wire Network. Considering getting back with an ex? Want to know if a pickup line works? Or maybe you're just stuck in the friend zone?
Don't Trip is advice at no price, and we're always going to keep it real.
We engage directly with our listeners with funny segments such as Simpin' or Pimpin', where we rate pickup lines, high questions to answer the unanswerable, or live listener call-ins.
Listen to Don't Trip on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and catch the video versions on YouTube every week.
Don't trip.
We got you.